This week we talked to Luke Shankula. Make sure you stay to the end because we talk about some serious actionable items that you can apply today to make some impact on that organic reach when you're working on social networks.
You are listening to the REI Mastermind Podcast. Join JD as he chats with industry-leading real estate experts and professionals. We learn from their experience and uncover the strategies to their success that we can implement into our own businesses, and we can drive immediate results today. They share their experience and wisdom as we build a foundation to our own success. This is the REI Mastermind Network.
We have Luke Shankula on the call tonight. Luke, I really appreciate your time, and we're going to be covering a lot of ground. I understand that you're a digital marketing expert. You do a lot of mortgage-related marketing, but we're going to really cover a lot of ground because I value a lot of we're going to see a lot of cross-pollination here with what you did and how you grew your business. But before we start things off, like I warned you, I want to make sure everybody has a way to get a hold of you. So, Luke, I'm going to include a lot of the links in the show notes, but it's loansondemand.co. So make sure you use co instead of .com. But otherwise, where else can they reach you? I know you're pretty active on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so you can reach me on, so the other website that we have is just our kind of our general website, which is paragondmg.com. You can find me on Facebook. I think it's L Shankula, or just search my name. I don't think there's any other Luke Shankulas in the entire U.S., so that'll be pretty easy. And then LinkedIn, yeah, I mean, I do spend some time on LinkedIn as well. Facebook's probably my primary sort of platform that I use specifically for some of the organic type marketing stuff that we were kind of talking about pre going live, right? So, yeah, we can talk about all that stuff though.
So no, this has been going to be a good conversation. I've been looking forward to this because I think, this is a number one topic for a lot of people. And I really value bringing other expertise from other industries and related industries because we can learn a lot from each other. And This concept of organic reach on these social networks, I think, is foreign to a lot of real estate investors and is one of those low-hanging fruits that I think a lot of people need to tackle. So,
yes.
So let's start and talk about that. Like what... You said you're probably most active on Facebook, but how would somebody go about branding themselves, if you will, on the social media? And I know that's a pretty broad question, but I think it's an obvious place to begin.
Yeah, and I think it's going to differ depending a little bit depending on which platform you choose to use, right? Like, some people, especially younger sort of generations, love Instagram. I still haven't quite figured Instagram out. But people love Instagram. And obviously, there's the TikToks of the world. There's a bunch of different platforms. I am a big believer in trying to find one or two platforms that work for you and just be consistent with those platforms, right? When it comes to lead generation or organic type of marketing strategies. And so I got, LinkedIn was a big one because obviously you can reach people that are business owners, business people that are more likely to fall into that sort of bucket. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, it might make sense for you to be on LinkedIn. It might make sense for you to be on Facebook. I mean, the same people are on LinkedIn that are on Facebook. It's just a little bit different of an approach as far as that goes, right? Because obviously LinkedIn is going to be a little bit more businessy. However, that being said, people are attracted to people, right? So people are attracted to people that suit them, right? So one of the biggest sort of errors or issues people come across when they start using social media as an organic marketing tool is they get super caught up in selling, right? Real estate agents posting listings all the time, like every single day they're posting listings. They're just always business oriented. That's just something that we kind of get stuck in, this sort of thought process that we just need to share a bunch of listings and that's going to give us business, or we're going to share a bunch of whatever we're doing and that's going to give us business. But the reality is people on these platforms are humans and they are attracted to people that are similar to them. And so you have to keep that in mind as you're using these platforms as a marketing tool, right? And so especially if you're using your personal profile, which I personally recommend, because most of the most of the business profiles on these platforms have drastically reduced reach. And the reason for that is because they want you to pay, right? And so, yeah, technically using, or, you're not supposed to sell, you're not supposed to use your personal profile as a sales mechanism, but you can use it to build brand, and you can do it. I mean, that's generally what, technically terms of service says you're not supposed to do that, but it's the best way, in my opinion, to organically grow relationships and your network at scale, right? Because you can actually find the sorts of people that you want to interact with, right? So, one of the tactics, strategies that I used, especially early on, was getting on Facebook, and every day I'd go in and add 10, 15, 20, 30 loan officers. You don't want to do too many a day because you can get, flagged by Facebook. Just start going through and finding people that fall under the criteria that you are looking to find, right? Whether that be, other investors, where you're looking for people that have the money, whatever it is that you're looking for, start building that sort of network, or the audience, whatever you want to call that, of people that are sort of within the demographic that you want to, let's just say, market to, right? So what I would do is I'd go ask a bunch of people to become friends, loan officers, stuff like that on my end, obviously. And then I would start posting content, right? And just realize when you first get started, you're going to be pretty bad, especially if you haven't done a lot of marketing and a lot of content creation and stuff like that. You're going to suck a little bit at first, but over time you get better and better and better. And so I generally do all kinds of different sort of, recently I haven't done as much because we've kind of moved on to mostly paid ad stuff. It's just kind of it's a lot, right? It's a lot to keep up with doing content all of the time. But when you're getting started, you generally have more time than money. And so using these strategies to get in front of your ideal audience is probably the best way that you can spend your time, as long as you're not just kind of sitting there and not doing anything else outside of that, right?
Right.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So a couple of the things that you brought up is that I think it's interesting that, and I think people need to be aware of, is that, early on in what you were saying there, you brought up the fact that depending on the platform, you're probably dealing with a different audience. And as such, you probably have to tailor that type of content for that. We got to keep that in mind for that audience.
Yeah, 100%.
Would you say that you should probably take that into account too when, frankly, it's going to be harder for somebody to do that type of thing if they don't like doing it. You probably should also find a social network that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, sometimes the younger demographic really likes Instagram, TikTok, things of those nature. And I have never, one of the biggest things I say, again, is find one or two mediums that you really kind of enjoy, or that you can kind of get behind, and go all in on those platforms, really learn how they work, learn how the algorithms work, and put out the content that really gets people to engage on those platforms. Because, again, Instagram is going to be very much, pictures and not as much content, not as much text. Facebook, you can write long posts, long copy. You can write, you can do pictures, you can do all kinds of different things, videos, things of that nature. LinkedIn, then you can do long posts, but not quite as long. Like, they do have a limit on how long you can go as far as that goes. So, if you're doing informational type of content, just giving some sort of tutorial or a how-to sort of thing in a copy post, you might have some issues with the length on LinkedIn. And the same thing with, social media. Again, like I mentioned a couple of times that people are humans, right? And like the people on these platforms are humans, and they are attracted to people that are similar to them, right? And so, again, a lot of times we get stuck in sale, business. What we really need to do is I like to stick to sort of I call it like the thirds, right? The thirds of marketing, right? So you do like a third of your content is business related, and that doesn't have to be like constantly selling, but you might be talking about, something that happens with your business. Another third of it's just going to be family type of stuff, right? Just family, what you're doing in life, all these things. And the last thing that I would generally say is you could do something along thought leader posts, right? So a lot of times I'll do long form posts about mindset, or something along those lines, investing, all these different things that you can kind of talk about, because you can start to build these different facets. You're a well-rounded person, and you can use things like proof, testimonials, all these different sorts of ways of kind of building that business. You can even use memes. Memes are a great way to build business, right? Because if you're able to make people laugh, you're actually truly bringing value to their life, right? Like that is if you don't just only do memes and just kind of become that. Like, but if you can do a healthy mix of all these different mediums and all these different ways of marketing, you're actually able to attract the sort of people that are similar to you, right? I would say personally, I stay away from political stuff mostly, stuff like that. That's just going to be a little bit hot topic. But again, you're just really looking to find people that are similar to you so you can do business with them, right? And a lot of times people get so stuck in it's a kind of a long game. Organic's kind of a long game. What you could also do from an organic perspective is do outreach via Messenger, via LinkedIn, like direct messaging. And with that, I do give a caveat to that a lot of times people will send a message and will like go connect with someone and then immediately they're trying to pitch them in the inbox. Or they start asking awkward questions, trying to build a relationship or to give value. But it's creepy, right? Like you don't just walk up to someone in the bar and ask like weird questions to this random person at the bar, right? Like you strike up a normal conversation with them and try to learn a little bit about them. Like the first thing you would probably do if you're going to try to connect with someone is like a couple of their posts, and not in a creepy way. I've seen people where they just like 10 posts in a row and then try to hit you in the DMs. And you're like, that doesn't work either, right? It's like, comment on one, like one, and you start to sort of build this almost like a little bit of a relationship or an awareness of who you are. And you can actually bring that into your conversations as well. Oh, I saw your post the other day about yada, yada, yada. That was awesome. Boom. And then just kind of start talking that way, right? Because so many times people try to build this inauthentic conversation. And every time I have someone come at me with like some question like that, like, oh, what did you say is your biggest obstacle right now? Or something like that. I know they're going to pitch me on something, so I don't ever respond to that sort of stuff. So you just have to be careful. There's the people that just going hard. And I would actually rather have someone hard pitch me right out the gate than have these, waste my time with a bunch of questions only to lead to a pitch down the road, right? If you're not going to build the relationships the right way.
Mm-hmm. So, you were talking about the different content. Like, at one point it was a lot of like, I talked to other social media experts and it was all video. Mm-hmm. And then before that it was photos. And then before that it was, it's constantly changing. Where do you see that direction now? And it's probably, again, different depending on the platform.
And I think it just differs. I mean, video is still huge. It's not quite as big of a reach. There was a point where doing Facebook Lives, like, Facebook was pushing that like crazy. So if you were doing Facebook Lives, you were pretty much notifying your whole network at a certain point. And that's kind of gone away, but that's still a good medium to actually kind of build a relationship. I don't do as much video as I should, really. I've really kind of gotten, I got a little lazy, but I used to do a lot of long form posts, but also family type stuff, things that are going to get engagement, asking questions, and just over time, you start to kind of build that muscle. You start to build, you get better at writing, things like that. But you also start to see what works and what doesn't work. And you can also leverage because essentially what Facebook does is if they see that you're consistently posting and you're consistently getting engagement, they're going to actually show your content to more people because that's what they want. They want their platform to they want the content creators to get more play because there's already so much content out there, and most of the people are what they're doing is they're resharing other people's content. That's going to get you. So you don't really want to use links to other platforms. You don't want to use YouTube videos. If you're going to upload a video, you upload it directly into Facebook or do a live or something like that because sharing articles or sharing other people's content, if you're consistently doing that, you're essentially going to get labeled as a spam profile, and Facebook's just not going to give you very much reach. So let's say you have thousands of followers or thousands of people that are in your network. Most of them are not going to see your stuff. Already, you're probably only reaching 5 to 10% of your audience or your network by what you're posting, right? And so people think that, they're posting too much or they're posting whatever, but the different people are going to see your content as well. And so just understanding that as well. And I think this sort of strategy, organic marketing, needs to be also in congruence, or not in congruence, but it has to be alongside something else, right? Because I think so many times people use these things as, let's just call it hope marketing, right? And so it's like I think you need some direct sort of like cold emailing or cold calling or mailers or something along those lines, especially when you're first getting started, to get you some quicker deals as you're kind of building out that organic presence as well, because it does take some time before you start to see some traction there. But it is a great medium to build your brand, to build momentum, and to generate interest in what you do, right?
Right. Well, you talked about this is going to take a while, like that persistent, consistent behavior. What type should somebody expect? How long? Because I don't want people to start posting to Facebook and Twitter and thinking that this is going to be an overnight success and they're gonna see some crazy returns right off the bat. How long do they have to? How many times a day should they be posting? And how long is it going to take it for them to really see any kind of traction?
I mean, to start off, like, I mean, I would say like daily is good, but I would say to start off, that's probably not actually going to be sustainable. And so you want to make sure that you're sustainable more so than so consistently and sustainable, right? So like if you can do 2 to 3 posts a week and you can consistently do that over and over and over again and continue to grow your network as well as you're growing that, you're building the relationships. Like part of it is you have to engage on other people's profiles as well, because then they're going to see your stuff as well. You send a message to someone, Facebook will actually prioritize your content in front of their feed. I think when you first add someone as well, they're going to see your first like 3 posts as they're scrolling through, because they're just seeing, hey, is this person actually going to engage with this person's content? And so it does take time, right? I would say consistently 3 to 6 months of just posting is when you're going to start to see the most traction. You might get some stuff here and there, depending on, maybe you have already people in your current network that might sort of fall into what you're looking to accomplish. But a lot of times the consistency and the long-term play is what's actually going to build that audience and build sort of that authority as well. Because if you post once that you got 1 win, but that's it. Like if you can post consistently that you're getting wins, you can post consistently that whatever, you're closing deals or this, that, and the other, or, that like people are going to see, hey, this is the person that does investing. This is the person that does investing. This is the person that does investing. Maybe I should reach out to this person. Let's say they have a conversation about investing and someone's like, man, I'm really looking for yada, yada, yada. This person does investing. Oh, well, actually, I know John over there. He doesn't, investing. You should probably talk to him. And that's how that works. A lot of what I found was I got referrals from people that didn't work with me that I had never even really talked to, because I would consistently talk about being the mortgage lead generation guy. Like they just knew because I talked about it all the time. I would post results all the time. They would see all of these things. And so it was funny because a lot of times I'd get referrals from other marketers. Oh yeah, this person, I don't do mortgage marketing. So you want this person? Or they'd tag me and stuff, people I'd never talked to. And so that's kind of how that works, is over time, you're able to build that momentum. And then obviously when you're talking about something like LinkedIn, so the big play there is a lot of times is doing some automations to get new people in your networks, and then sort of building that organic conversation as well there. But with LinkedIn, the difference there is obviously you have all of that space that you can fill out your jobs, stuff like that. The one thing with LinkedIn is so many times people will fill out that stuff like a resume. Oh, I worked at X company here. I worked at X company here. Instead of using that space as a sales page, right? They need to use that space as a sales page. Use it so that people are actually, think about the concept of what's in it for me, right? Think about what your ideal client or what your ideal audience is going to want. And when you connect with them, they're going to look at your profile and they're going to see, I'm an investor that does this. I'm a loan officer that does this. For me, I'm a marketer that helps loan officers, whatever that looks like. And then they can see case studies. They can see video testimonials. They can see exactly what we do instead of I worked here and I worked here and I worked here and I worked here, right? And that's huge as well. It's called basically a profile funnel. The same thing you can do with Facebook is optimize your profile so people know what you do. I see so many times loan officers, you go to their profile, you can't even tell they're a loan officer. They don't talk about it. They don't have it on their job, like what their job is. They don't say they're a loan officer. There's nothing. You can't tell. So how is someone supposed to find you if you're not ever talking about it, right? Like you could be the best loan officer, you could be the best investor in the world. If no one knows who you are, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who they see some of this stuff as a side hustle and they don't talk about it.
Or it's awkward too, because it is when you first start doing it, you're like, oh, well, I don't want my family to see this stuff because it's kind of I've only done my family and my friends. It's kind of weird. And because I started my marketing business. Like, first of all, when you first start something new, there's people are like, oh, well, here we go again type of thing, right? Oh, there's another guy that's doing this. Like, he'll be back working a job in no time type of thing. And then it was crazy to see, like, the longer I did it, the more it was like, I guess this guy is sticking around, huh? And it was just like, there's almost this like momentum, even with my family, right? Even with my parents and stuff like that. It was interesting to sort of see the transition between like, are you going to go back and get a job to, oh, this is just what you do now, right? Like, and I think that's huge, especially when you're getting started. That I wouldn't call them haters, but it makes sense. I mean, I think what they say, like 90% of small businesses fail or something like that. And so that's the reality that people are sort of faced with. And so being consistent with that and just not caring what your family says or your friends say, or even don't say, but think, right? Like you're worried about that. And so you don't post consistently. You don't get the engagement you think you should get, but realize a lot of times the people that are most likely to actually turn into a lead or turn into a deal or whatever are a lot of times are the people that don't actually engage. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. So, you're talking about the content. How about the content itself? Like I think a lot of people might be resistant to be posting on a regular basis because they think it has to be super polished and has to be super slick or something.
Yeah, well, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like you're like doing videos or doing long form copy or doing things like that. Like you're not going to be great at it at first, but that's kind of a good thing because you're not also going to get a lot of reach unless you've already been consistently posting and stuff like that about other things, and you do get a lot of engagement. You have a lot of friends, but if you do that already, then because I was one of those people before, like I didn't ever post on social media, but prior to getting into business. I just would go on there every once in a while. I'd post family pictures or something along those lines, but I didn't really do much with the with sort of business type posts or anything like that. And so it was I had to develop that muscle, and it felt really weird at first. And I just look back. I love seeing the memories when it comes up on Facebook of some of the posts I used to post. I'm a little embarrassed, but at the same time, like most people probably didn't see it, right? Like my network's grown by thousands of people. And I think back when I started, I had like 400 people in my network. Now I think I have almost 4,000. And so it's just like, that starts to grow over time. And sometimes it's weird. And so the content, it doesn't have to be super polished. It just has to mostly be consistent, because over time you're going to develop that and get better and better and better. You don't have to have some professional image or whatever. You can just talk about your family. You can talk about you just closed a deal. You can talk about a testimonial that you got from a client. You can talk about it. You can post a screenshot, things like that. Because the other thing as well is there's different forms of proof, and so people like to associate themselves with people that are kind of on an upward spiral, right? People that are successful, and so things that you can post as forms of proof are testimonials, screenshots. Being published in articles, things like that. What else? Proof of the upward spiral. People talking about you, so colleagues talking about you. These are all forms of proof that you can leverage as different types of content that you can put out there, right? Also, like I said, family stuff. You can talk funny stuff, being relevant to what's going on in the marketplace. There's a lot of different things, even thought leader posts, right? Talking about how to invest in a certain type of property, how to use certain programs to invest, things like that, all mixed in together kind of gives you like a more well-rounded profile that people can be more attracted to, because you're not one-track mind, you're not just all business, and also because you are partially business, you have a good profile that has all the things that you do. People are going to go to you because they're going to start to know you as the person that does investing, the person that does loans, the person that does real estate, right? They're going to know you as that person because you talk about it, but you're also an attractive character, right? That's one of the marketing principles, is becoming an attractive character.
Right. And it just to remind everybody, if they want more information or contact you directly, they can go to your website. Was it paragondmg.com?
Yeah, paragondmg.com. So like Paragon Digital Marketing Group, paragondmg.com, or find me on Facebook.
And I know this is kind of a backwards question, and usually a person would start off the podcast with this, but how did you get into this? Like, what made you start focusing on this organic marketing?
Yeah, well, so let's take it a little farther back. I mean, so I got laid off in 2017. I worked for a mortgage lender, got laid off in 2017. I tried to start a contract processing business. If you're in the loan business, obviously, processing. I realized pretty quickly I didn't want to do that. I started getting my license to become a loan officer. Pretty quickly realized I didn't want to do that as well. But in the meantime, I started learning how to market for myself, right? And I fell in love with marketing. And so that's kind of how this whole thing came about, as far as just kind of starting my marketing agency and working towards that. And as far as the organic side of things go, I went through a program pretty early on in this whole business thing that they talked a lot about organic marketing. They talked about, and I also was just reading as much as I could. And there were some different people out there that had great content on how to basically leverage your social profiles to generate interest, right? And so I started implementing some of this stuff over time. And it's funny because it was really awkward at first. I started talking about things and it just kind of started to snowball. And as I was consistent with it, business started growing. I was able to talk about that, and I was able to leverage, proof in different ways as well. Sometimes early on I would talk about the same client 3 or 4 different ways, right? I would talk about, the cost per lead that we were getting on Facebook. I would talk about, oh man, today we got this X amount of leads. And it was sometimes the same client that I was talking about, but it was just different ways of framing the conversation. So we're not talking about the same thing every single day. And so maybe you're just getting started out and you don't have a ton of testimonials and things like that, but you can sort of leverage them in different ways, because you have to realize not everybody's going to see every single one of your posts, right? And so you don't have to feel like you're just overly, and the thing with social media too is it's there and then it's gone. It's gone fast, right? So like, if they just didn't happen to log in that day, they're not going to see it. So there's only going to be a small percentage of people that are seeing a lot of your posts, right?
Right. And that's a good segue too, is the fact that some people feel like they're going to become repetitive. But they shouldn't really be concerned about that, right? I mean, like you said, there's a chance that most of them aren't going to see the one post. Repetition, it really isn't an issue.
Well, and that being said, repetition is the mother of all skill too. And so, creating the habits around doing things like this, posting organically, posting, whatever it is that you want to do, right? I mean, whether it be using social media, whether it be cold calling, all these things, like the more you do these things, the better you're going to get at them, right? The first time you pick up a phone to cold call, you're going to suck. I personally don't like to cold call, but I've done it in the past because that's what needed to happen, right? And so it's the same thing, right? Like, how can you develop those muscles that allow you to grow as a person and to grow as whatever it is that you're trying to do? Because it is hard, and repetition. Like, again, like you can repeat things in different ways. As long as it's not like you just want to make sure you try to weigh. You just don't post about business every single day if you're only posting once a day. If you're posting 3 or 4 times a day, you can probably post every day about business, right? Because that's contextual to the amount of content you're putting out there, right? But if you're only putting out content that's business oriented, the likelihood of it being getting great engagement, because business posts always get less engagement than family posts, pictures of family, pictures of vacations, marriage, weddings, engagements, things like that. Those are going to get much higher engagement. And so the more engagement you get, the more likely it is that Facebook will share your other posts with more reach as well. And so it's a little bit of an engagement game too. Like, engagement is a vanity metric, but at the same time, without engagement, the likelihood of your posts seeing reach is pretty low. And so you have to stray the line between your engagement sort of posts and your business sort of posts and things like that. And so by sort of giving yourself sort of multiple ways to put out content and stay in front of people, you're staying top of mind as well. So you got to realize that as well. They know you as whatever, the investor, as the loan officer, as the marketer, as the real estate agent. They know you as that person. but they also start seeing your other content, right? So you also start to become more of a person to them as well, right? There's the person, you start to develop that personality. And so, oh, well, I also have a family. I like that. I like talking about my family all the time because I want to work with people that have families, right? I want to work with people that are similar to me. And so that's why I put that sort of content out there, not because I'm, whatever. It's just because that's who I want to work with. Those are the sort of people that sort of align with my goals, my values, my dreams, all those things, because they're wanting similar things that I do, right?
What do you think of using some of the tools to be posting to the social networks? So it's all the same content blasted across everything. Hootsuite and some of those things that come to mind.
Typically, so social media platforms reduce the reach when you use third-party apps like that to put out content. Especially, and if you're doing it on a business page, so I'm talking. This is all personal, like using your personal profile to talk about these things, because business profiles, the reality about all these platforms is they want you to pay to play, right? As a business, right? So if you use your business profile, your likelihood of getting reach is like, you're gonna get like 1 to 3% of the people that have liked your page. And I think Facebook actually just did away with even likes on personal page, on the business pages even. So I don't even know how you build a following on a business page anymore. But yeah, ultimately those tools tend to not work. And also, sometimes like using those templated, while they're easier to use, those templated sort of sites that will actually put out content for you too, because I know sites out there that will actually, kind of cookie cutter out things. It just doesn't. If you want to do that as part of your content, maybe, but I personally think you have much better results by actually doing the content yourself. At some point, you might be able to outsource that to someone who understands your voice and understands your brand. But it's pretty hard to kind of build that actual brand and connection with people if you're just going to use some sort of tool that posts for you. It's hard.
Sure.
Right.
Well, let's close things out here a little bit by giving people like 3 actionable items that they can take care of or work on right away. Like, what are like the top 3 things that, if they're going to start building a brand on social media, that they can implement right now?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. Obviously, from a cheap standpoint, using, like I mentioned, the organic strategies, going out there and if you're using something like Facebook or Instagram or even LinkedIn, is connecting with the people that are going to be within your target audience. So whether that be Facebook, maybe 20 to 30 people a day, Instagram probably around the same amount. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not big on Instagram, but LinkedIn, you could do, I think, up to 100 a day. However, you probably want to have a paid profile for that. But again, you still want to be connecting with people every single day and putting content out consistently. The other way you could do that for very, very cheap is you could use something like a Facebook ad and do like 1 or 2 or up to $5 a day, and just use something like an engagement post or a reach post or something along those lines to just put out content. And that's going to build your brand, right? It's going to be cheap. It's probably not going to bring a ton of leads, but it's going to build your brand, and it's going to be fairly cheap, right? So if you have a couple bucks to spare on a daily basis, $2-3 a day, you can actually get pretty far with that using some sort of $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 a day strategy to sort of target your ideal audience, whatever that looks like. And then that's probably the main things. And then the other strategies you could obviously use is, obviously the first strategy was adding people and then posting organic content. So whether that be testimonials, proof, whether that be long form articles, not articles, but long form sort of posts about, let's just say, investing or whatever it is that you want to post about, just making you a thought leader. But then the third sort of thing that I was going to say is using direct outreach, using LinkedIn, especially if you're looking for sort of business-minded people. LinkedIn, you can go there, you can add people and you can connect with them, have a conversation there. Same thing you do with Facebook, Instagram, DMs. I know a loan officer that has built his majority of his business off of Instagram, just kind of built his page up, and then he'll just DM. He just sends DMs out to real estate agents. He sends DMs out to people like that, mostly real estate agents over there, so that he can sort of, hey, you want to have coffee or whatever, you want to meet up, And then they have that conversation that way. And again, you're looking for that initial conversation. You're not trying to make a sale via the DMs, right? Via the private message, right? So same thing with Facebook. You can like their content. You can start a normal conversation with them, and then kind of go from there and see if that turns into anything. But again, just be careful, because you can get creepy pretty fast. You can get kind of obnoxious pretty fast. And one thing marketers always say is that marketers break everything. So marketers like to take things to the full extreme. They automate things. They break things. They go hard. But at the same time, that's what shows you is that marketers are just willing to test it. So it's like, go out there, test what works for you, what feels comfortable for you. There were some strategies that I learned in that organic group that I just didn't like. Like, one of the things they talked about was posting in other people's groups, and then anybody who likes or comments on your thing, you then add them and then start conversations with them. I always felt that was kind of weird. I didn't like that. So I like to just kind of do that on my own profile, or start your own Facebook group or something along those lines. But I didn't like to kind of like hijack other people's groups, because it just felt inauthentic and weird.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate this conversation. I think that everybody, like I said, when we started kicking off this conversation, everybody's trying to find that low-hanging fruit, especially when they're getting into real estate investing for the first time. They're trying to wring out every piece of marketing minute and dollar that they can. And an organic reach on social media is a great place to take advantage of that. Outside of what we've talked about today, was there a question you wished I would have asked?
No, I mean, just from the paid perspective, if you are going to do lead gen on a platform like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Instagram, any of those platforms, I'll just kind of come up with a couple little tips here. Is one, if you have a little bit more money burning a hole in your pocket, spend enough money that it makes sense, but be patient. But the biggest thing for that is needing to have a process for the follow-up, right? Because so many times people think that just by getting more leads, they're just going to miraculously make more money and close more deals. But the reality is more leads into a broken system leads to broken results. And so if you do go out there, you do want to run some ads, you do want to generate some leads, realize that if you don't have a good follow-up process, you don't have a good sales process, you don't have a good closing process, all of these different steps, the consumer or the person at the other end is really looking for reasons not to do business with you, right? And so if you don't have that all dialed in, you're really just going to really burn a hole in your pocket, right? And so, if you're going to do that, just be careful, but just make sure you have good follow-up automations, a follow-up process. You're going to call. How many times are you going to call? Are you going to text them? How many times are you going to text them? How quickly are you going to call? Do you have the capacity to do that? All right. And then the second thing, as far as that goes, is trying to generate higher quality leads. We generally do long form leads, right? 12, 14 questions. And we found that by doing that, by having longer questions, by having questionnaires, really, you're increasing intent and generally you're increasing quality. But the last thing is being aware of the sort of audience that you're looking for, right? Because with mortgage stuff, like one of the things early on, I would talk about 0% financing. I'd talk about, 0% down, 100% financing, things like that, low credit, low down payment. And guess what happened? I mean, you're attracting the sort of people that are not going to qualify for a mortgage, right? And so you have to start to think, what is the consumer, what is the person that you're looking to attract, want, need, and like, and put ads out there that are going to attract the sort of people that are going to turn into a deal, not that's going to get you the cheapest lead, right? And so increasing intent, but also increasing quality by actually putting out ads that are attracting the sort of people that are most likely to turn into a deal, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like we could probably spend an entire episode talking about how to make the most use of paid advertising.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We didn't even get into any of that stuff, which is a lot of what we do, for our clients, right? But the organic stuff I love that stuff because for people that are just starting out, we're always looking for, because I for the first 2 years, I didn't spend much on ads, and a couple times I did. And every time it was just, money out of my pocket because I didn't have a process. I didn't have a process for sales. I didn't have a process for follow-up. And so, it applied to me just the same way it applies to loan officers, the same way it would apply to an investor. If you're going to use stuff like paid ads and you don't have a system, you're just going to spend money that you don't probably have. And so sometimes it's better to just get a couple deals under your belt, make some cold calls, use organic marketing, do the free strategies until you have some money to spend to develop a system, and you work on your own processes, or you can pay for, someone to kind of show you their process or something along those lines, because that's really where you're going to see success, right?
Mm-hmm. No, well, Luke, I really appreciate you giving us this insight and some information. To remind everybody again, go over to paragondmg.com. Luke Shankula. It's easy to. It looks harder than it is. Shankula, Shankula. Find him on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I know you're not a huge fan of Instagram, but I think you're there as well.
I am there. Yeah. I might take a couple weeks if you send me a DM there though, because I only check probably once every couple weeks. But I have a marketing person that's like, you need to start doing Instagram, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to do that. So,
well, you mentioned you don't get Instagram. I don't get Instagram, but I really don't get TikTok. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I logged in and I deleted it after like 2 weeks. But that being said, I do know loan officers that are getting deals doing TikTok, talking about USDA programs, talking about 0% financing options, down payment assistance programs. So I mean, it depends on what demographic you are, right? Like there might be some opportunity for investors on something like TikTok, on something like Snapchat. I don't know, right? Like I think every platform works, but again, sticking to one or two platforms that you're going to be consistent with is really the big play.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson for just in business in general. If you're getting into real estate investing, for example, we always advise people to focus on strictly wholesaling at first, or rentals or whatever. Get good at that one thing before you consider the broader landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, no, Luke, I really appreciate it. I think we, if you're open to it, we could have you back on and we can chat a little bit about the pay for advertising. Like I said, that would be a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
And paid again. I mean, obviously the biggest, the big thing I like to talk about with paid ads again is the back end is more important almost than the front end. Right, getting more leads, great. Yeah, there's ways to qualify them. There's ways to improve intent. There's ways to improve quality. But if you don't have a good process, you don't have the right mindset, you don't have the right sales stuff going on, like you're just going to burn a hole in your pocket. And I would probably wager that 80-90% of people that they say they've been burned by online lead gen companies probably just didn't have a good system, and there probably was deals to be had. They just didn't know how to follow up properly, and the company didn't help them with that either. So,
right. No, I really appreciate it. Again, it's paragondmg.com, and hope you can be on again sometime, and we'll talk soon. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
This has been the REI Mastermind Network. You can already tell that we've made some changes, and a few more are on the way. If you are interested in what we have planned, head over to patreon.com/REI Mastermind and support the show today. Financial contributions are always appreciated, along with a like, share, and review. It really helps us grow and reach more people with this valuable information. See you next time, and tell a friend.